The night my boyfriend proposed, I overheard a conversation between him and my best friend. "I'm about to get married," he asked her. "Do you regret it?" Her eyes reddened, and then she leaned in and kissed him. "I do." In my boyfriend's eyes, I saw shock, then hesitation, and finally something close to delight. Like he'd finally won. Like this was what he'd wanted all along. When he reached out to pull her into an embrace, his gaze suddenly locked onto mine, hidden in the corner. I didn't turn and walk away. I stepped forward and slapped him across the face. My best friend instinctively moved to stop me. I raised my hand to strike her, but he stepped in front of her instead, his eyes red as he begged, "If you're going to hit someone, hit me. Don't hit her." Chapter 1. In my 5th year with Chad, he prepared an elaborate proposal. When he slid the ring onto my finger, I smiled and said yes. But my best friend, Chloe, stood nearby with tears streaming down her face. Her gaze shifted from me to Chad, and she forced a smile that looked worse than crying. "Anna, I really envy you," she said softly. "I really do." I patted her on the back and joked, "I envy you too. You're always changing boyfriends. I'm the unlucky one, I've only ever dated one person, and now I'm marrying him." Chad, unexpectedly, said nothing. His eyes were fixed on Chloe. She continued, "You and Chad have been together for 5 years already. If back then." Before she could finish, Chad reached across the table, grabbed 2 bottles of alcohol, and cut her off. "Let's drink to us," he said. "Wish us well." Chloe took the bottle from his hand. She smiled, but as she drank, tears fell. "Anna," she said, her voice unsteady, "why do you think some people can forget someone so easily?" I thought she was talking about her revolving door of relationships, so I smiled and comforted her. "That just means you haven't met the right person yet." She shook her head sadly, drink after drink. "I did. I just missed my chance." Then she stood up unsteadily and made her way toward the restroom. I was about to go after her when Chad, who hadn't spoken much all night, stood up first. "She's had too much to drink. I'll go check on her." I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Chapter 2. After a long while, neither of them had returned. Uneasy, I decided to follow. The restroom was empty, but next to it was a staircase leading up to a small terrace. Just as I was about to turn back, I heard Chloe's muffled sobs. Without thinking, I turned around and walked up the stairs. At a glance, I saw Chad and Chloe standing together. His hand was resting on her hair, somewhere between a comforting pat and a lingering caress. "Isn't this exactly what you wanted to see?" he said. "You were the one who rejected me back then. You were the one who told me Anna liked me." His eyes were completely emotionless as he spoke. And yet, his movements betrayed an intimacy that said otherwise. "So, just like you wanted, I got together with her. We're about to get married," he said. "Do you regret it now?" My mind went completely blank. It felt as if my feet had been filled with lead, too heavy to move. Then, slowly, I saw Chloe's eyes redden, little by little. She looked up at him. "Chad, you bastard. Did you propose today just to provoke me? You knew this was the same day I rejected you back then." Chad said nothing. As if she had made up her mind, Chloe rose onto her toes and kissed him. "But I regret it." Tears streamed down her face as she pounded weakly against his chest. Once again, I saw it in Chad's eyes, shock, confusion, and finally, unmistakable joy. As if vengeance had been achieved. As if a long-suppressed desire had finally been satisfied. It felt like something was hammering relentlessly against my chest, wave after wave, twisting with pain. My nose burned, my eyes ached beyond control, and then the tears poured down. That day was also the day Chad had first told me he wanted to be with me. I had thought it was romantic. From the beginning to the proposal, exactly 5 years. I never imagined it was a date he had deliberately chosen, all for the sake of getting back at her. How could he so calmly stab me in the heart on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life? Chapter 3. Right in front of me stood the man I had been with for 5 years and the friend I had trusted for 8. They had betrayed me together. When Chad reached out to pull her into his arms, his eyes met mine in the corner. At the same time, Chloe turned and saw me too, her face streaked with tears. And Chad actually looked startled. What was he startled by? The woman he loved was finally returning his feelings. He should have been happy. So what did that make me? Were these 5 years of my life nothing more than a front row seat to their unfinished story? If they had never truly let go of each other, why drag me into their emotional mess in the first place? After the pain came a surge of boundless anger. I didn't turn around and leave. I didn't pretend nothing had happened. I didn't scream or demand answers. I stepped forward and slapped Chad hard across the face. His head snapped to the side. When I raised my hand again, Chloe instinctively moved to stop me. I didn't say a word. I lifted my hand toward her, but the slap never landed. Because Chad grabbed my wrist. He stepped in front of her, lowered his eyes, and said, "If you're going to hit someone, hit me. Don't hit her." Chapter 4. In a daze, memories surfaced. At our high school graduation dinner, I had finally worked up the courage to confess to Chad. He had been drinking. When he saw me approach, he glanced at me casually and asked, "You and Chloe are close, right?" "Yes." Then he asked, "Anna, do you like me?" My teenage crush was laid bare in an instant. My face burned red as I twisted my fingers, trying to figure out what to say. Chad spoke first. "Then let's be together." "What?" Ignoring my shock, he stood up and stepped closer. "So, do you want to walk me home?" It turned out it was only because Chloe had rejected him that day. And because I was her best friend, he chose me instead. Later, Chad and I went to the same university, while Chloe attended a nearby university just a street away from ours. When we first started dating, Chad would often, almost unconsciously, ask if we should invite friends to hang out. So I would bring Chloe along. In other words, being with me simply gave him a perfectly reasonable excuse to see her. Throughout our college years, it felt like every major moment involved the three of us. We went to movies together, concerts together, celebrated birthdays together, and walked through our youth side by side. Even our other friends would say how close we were. I would laugh, wrap an arm around Chloe's neck, and joke that she was my real partner, and Chad came second. In my heart, she always came first. And yet, this first and closest friend of mine began coveting my boyfriend just as I was about to get married. What was even more tragic was that my boyfriend felt the same way. How ironic. Chapter 5. I hurled the ring in my hand at Chad with all my strength. Grabbing him by the collar, I pounded my fists against his chest. "Why would you do this to me? What do you think I am to you?" Tears streamed down my face, my voice hoarse and breaking. How did they manage to keep me completely in the dark? How did they manage to pine for each other while pretending to be close to me? For these 5 years, what exactly had I been to Chad? One was my boyfriend. The other was my closest friend. How did they dare? Chloe came toward me in tears, tugging at my arm. "I'm sorry, Anna. I rejected Chad back then. You're not married yet, and I don't want to miss my chance. Could you give him to me?" I looked at her, and when Chad wasn't paying attention, I slapped her across the face. "Do you have any shame at all?" I shouted. She clearly hadn't expected me to hit her. Covering her cheek, Chloe cried through her tears, "I love him too." Is loving someone a crime? I was so furious I could barely think, screaming almost hysterically. "It's not a crime, but the two of you are disgusting." Chad bent down, picked up the ring from the floor, and stepped toward me, reaching out. "Anna, calm down." I dodged his hand and looked straight at him, enunciating every word. "Chad, we're done." Chapter 6. I turned to leave, but my footing slipped. Chad wrapped an arm around my waist and lifted me off the ground. Panicked, he said, "We're not done. Listen to me. Let me explain." I beat against him with all my strength, kicking and screaming. "Put me down. Let go of me, Chad." But he held my legs tightly, leaving me unable to move. Chloe stood frozen in place, tears streaming down her face as she called his name. "Chad." He acted as if he didn't hear her at all. He carried me all the way to the car and shoved me inside. "Chad, get out. Get out of my life. I want out of this car, let me out." He locked the doors and drove off before I could say another word. By the time we got home, my entire body felt like it was falling apart. The moment I walked in, I went straight to the bedroom and started packing. I opened my suitcase and threw my clothes in one by one. Chad tried to stop me. "I can't explain." I shook his hand off and stared at him coldly. "Don't touch me. It makes me sick." He went on anyway. "I admit my reasons for being with you weren't pure. In high school, I liked Chloe. I did choose you partly to get back at her. But later, I really did fall in love with you. Anna, the one I love now is you." "So what?" I shot back. "Because you love me, I'm supposed to be grateful?" He licked his lips and hurried to explain. "That's not what I meant. I just lost my head earlier." Seeing her cry made me feel sorry for her, and for a moment, I felt relieved. "That's why I said those things." I dug my fingers hard into my thigh, forcing myself to stay calm. "So next time something happens to her, what? You'll comfort her in bed?" He frowned. "You don't have to be so cruel." When I ignored him, he continued, "I won't have any contact with her anymore." "Oh really?" I laughed bitterly. "So what are you, two different people? Passionate one second, heartless the next?" A sudden clap of thunder exploded outside. "See?" I said coldly. "Even the sky doesn't buy a cheater's excuses." I went back to packing. He wanted to stop me, but didn't dare. He just stood there and said quietly, "Anna, I love you. There's nothing between her and me. Can you give me one more chance? One more chance so you can cheat on me again and humiliate me all over?" I asked. "Don't do this," he said helplessly, his eyes reddening. "Please don't leave. You already said yes to my proposal. We can get married right away. Let's just pretend nothing happened tonight, okay?" Chapter 7. Okay? How could he say something like that so shamelessly? What did he take me for? Someone he could be with casually, then discard just as easily? Someone who, even after knowing he and my best friend had betrayed me, would still swallow it all and forgive him like nothing had happened? A bolt of lightning flashed outside. Then the rain came pouring down. I looked out the window and said calmly, "Chad, you hurt me." "I'm sorry. I'm sorry," he kept repeating. My eyes drifted to the framed photo of us hanging in the middle of the bedroom. My chest felt unbearably tight. That place where my heartbeat throbbed in sharp, pulsing pain. I couldn't breathe it out or swallow it down. It was suffocating. It hurt so badly. I looked at him, then grabbed the remote from the bedside table and hurled it at the frame. Crash. The glass shattered, the photo falling to the floor with it. I picked up the scissors nearby and cut the picture to pieces, then cut it again. Chad suddenly rushed over and pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly, somewhere between comfort and desperation. His voice was low and hoarse. "Anna, I love you. I only love you." I grabbed his shirt front and shook him, then let go like he burned me. I cried so hard I could barely breathe. It felt like every last bit of strength was being drained from my body. Tears fell one by one onto his face. He didn't fight back. He just looked at me in silence. His face slowly turned red, then purple. He still didn't make a sound. Finally, I let go. I wiped the tears from my face, took a deep breath, and said flatly, "You hurt me. So just now, I hurt you too." Chad, we're even. He panicked. No. He grabbed my hand and desperately tried to put the ring back on my finger. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't anymore. I wanted to push him away, but it felt like I had already used up every ounce of strength I had. I just stood there quietly, watching his hands tremble as he slid the ring onto my finger. My voice was barely audible. Chad, I don't want to see you. You make me sick. That was when Chloe walked in. Chapter 8. I had forgotten she still had her fingerprint registered on our door lock. How ridiculous. When I had pressed her finger to the scanner back then, I never imagined that one day this would be the person trying to steal my boyfriend. She was still wearing that thin slip dress from earlier. Now she was soaked through, her figure faintly outlined. Her hair clung to her face, her lips pale. She stood in the doorway, looking at Chad and me, her voice trembling. Anna, don't blame him. It's my fault. I'm the one who crossed the line. I looked at her and said calmly, Chloe, for a man, do you really have to sink this low? Her gaze flickered. After a moment's hesitation, she said, I don't want to miss my chance. I spent 5 years with him too. Fine. Really fine. I let out a cold laugh. So in the end, friendship really did lose to love. All these years, I watched her move from one boyfriend to the next. I thought she just hadn't met the right person. I never realized that throughout these 5 years we spent together, she had been constantly regretting that she once rejected Chad. Regretting that she had pushed him into my arms. If it weren't for the two of them, I would have only been heartbroken for a while over a failed confession. After college, I would have moved on. I would have forgotten. I would have found someone who genuinely loved me and built a clean, honest relationship. No revenge. No lingering attachments. Even if the two of them had eventually ended up together, I wouldn't have thought there was anything wrong with it. It wouldn't have been like today, being stabbed so brutally by the two people who mattered most to me. I clenched my fists and forced my voice steady. Then I wish you both a lifetime together. May you carry the label of betrayers forever, live in the shadows, and be judged for it. At some point, tears slid down Chad's face. He reached out to grab me, and I raised my hand and slapped him again. The sharp edge of the ring sliced across his cheek. A deep cut ran from the corner of his eye down to his jaw, blood welling up immediately. Chloe screamed and rushed forward, fumbling for tissues to stop the bleeding. I took the chance to grab my suitcase and head out. Behind me, I heard Chad suddenly say, Anna, if you leave here, do you even have anywhere else to go? Chapter 9. My steps faltered. He really did know exactly where to strike to hurt me the most. I never imagined that one day we would be tearing into each other like this. I never imagined Chad would rub salt into the deepest wound in my heart. Back when Chad and I argued, I could still go to Chloe's place to vent. We would lie under the same blanket, reminiscing about high school, about our youth. Those days had been good. I had a lover. I had a friend. And now, the two people I loved most were the ones who had hurt me the worst. I didn't hesitate. I flung the ring to the floor and dragged my suitcase out. When the door closed behind me, neither of them followed. I heard Chloe's sobbing voice inside. Chad, you're bleeding. Let me help you stop it. I didn't turn back. Not even once. Chapter 10. At midnight, I stood outside my family home, unsure whether I should go in. My mother had passed away from illness when I was in middle school. After I went to college, my dad once asked me carefully if it would be okay for him to find a companion. I had overlooked how hard it must have been for him to raise me alone all those years. I understood his emotional needs, and I knew he couldn't stay alone forever for my mother's sake. The summer after my freshman year, he brought a woman home to meet me. She was gentle and warm, always smiling. While she was in the bathroom, my dad quietly asked if I was okay with it, telling me that if I wasn't, he wouldn't pursue the relationship. Seeing the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, I swallowed the cruel words and simply smiled and nodded. Later, Aunt Susan moved in with us. The house became neat and well cared for, filled with flowers and hot meals. My dad seemed happier with each passing day, and that was when I started to feel like I no longer quite belonged. I knew it was selfish of me to feel that way, but I still couldn't fully accept a stranger stepping into my life. So even though I studied locally, I only went home during winter and summer breaks. When Chad learned about my family situation, he rented a place off campus during our junior year, so I would always have somewhere to go when I didn't want to go home. The place we were living in now. His family was well off, and he eventually bought it outright. That day, he placed the property papers in front of me, wrapped his arms around me, and said softly, "Anna, I'm here. I'll give you a home. Even if we fight someday, I'll be the one to leave. You'll always stay." I was deeply moved. Truly. But when I peeled away the layers of armor around my heart and showed him my most vulnerable self, I never imagined I was handing him the knife he would later use to hurt me. Again and again, stabbing straight into my heart until it was bleeding. I leaned against the door, hugged my knees, and buried my face in my arms. Maybe it was some kind of instinct. Not long after, the door opened. My dad stood there in his pajamas, looking at me. "Anna," he asked softly. "What's wrong?" Chapter 11. Aunt Susan came out as well, pulling a cardigan around her shoulders. The living room lights flicked on. My dad glanced at the suitcase beside me and asked, "Did you two have a fight?" I shook my head, then nodded. "We broke up. It's over for good." He didn't ask why. Instead, he said, "Are you hungry? Do you want something to eat?" Then he gave Aunt Susan a look. She paused for a moment, then smiled. "You must be starving at this hour. I'll make you something warm." I didn't say anything as she went into the kitchen. My dad sat down beside me. This man who had never been good with words patted my shoulder. "Anna, you still have your dad. You still have a home." The tears I had just managed to stop came rushing back. Between sobs, I told him what had happened that night. I thought he might say what most parents would, that couples fight, that things cool down after a few days. Instead, his eyes reddened. "It's my fault. I didn't help you see people clearly." "Anna," he said softly, "I'm always on your side. Come home." Just then, Aunt Susan came back with a steaming bowl, smiling at me. "Anna, have something warm. Don't hold it in. Our Anna is wonderful. You deserve someone who loves you properly." I took the spoon and drank the broth one sip at a time. The rising steam stung my eyes. So my family still loved me. That was enough. Chapter 12. I didn't sleep well that night. In my dreams, Chad appeared again and again. Back then, things had been so good. The first time I brought Chad home to meet my dad, he was so nervous he didn't sleep at all. In truth, I knew my dad hadn't slept either. Early the next morning, Chad went out and bought gifts. When he arrived at my place, he rushed into the kitchen to help my dad and Aunt Susan with everything. Trying hard to make a good impression, he cleaned the entire house from top to bottom. After drinking a few glasses with my dad, he had even patted his chest and made a solemn promise. "Sir, don't worry. I'll take care of Anna for the rest of my life." During the years we lived together, he really did treat me well. He really did try to live up to his promise of giving me a home. A man who had grown up being waited on, he willingly learned to cook for me. After we graduated and started working, he would make breakfast every morning and wake me up, drop me off on his way to work, then pick me up in the evenings. Sometimes we went out for a nice meal. Other times we wandered through markets and grocery stores, bought a pile of ingredients, and cooked at home. Sometimes, watching his back as he cooked, I would think that growing old hand in hand with this person didn't seem like such a bad future. I remembered one night when I couldn't sleep. He pulled me into his arms while half asleep, holding me tightly. Then he kissed my cheek in his sleep and murmured, "Wife, come here." At that time, he treated me like something precious. Then Chloe appeared in the dream. Back in high school, when I was insecure, she learned about my family and started bringing me boiled eggs every day. On weekends, she took me to her house for meals. Her mother would cook so much good food for us. We lay on the bed together, listening to music and watching TV shows. Cicadas chirped outside the window. Inside was the laughter of teenage girls. We exchanged journals. We spent every weekend together. We carved our initials into a cheap little padlock and hung it on a fence, like it meant anything. At the end of the dream, the two of them were holding each other, looking at me coldly, telling me that I was the unnecessary one. I woke up drenched in sweat. Chapter 13. By the time I stepped out of my room, it was already close to noon. My dad told me Chad had been sitting outside our place since early morning. Dark circles under his eyes, his whole face drawn and exhausted. No one knew whether he had come the night before or just that morning. I sent him away, my dad said. I know you don't want to see him, so we won't. Aunt Susan had already finished cooking. The pork rib soup smelled rich and comforting. Anna's up, she said. Come eat. After lunch, since it's the weekend, how about going fishing with your dad, she added. Okay, I said. But when I opened the door, I still saw Chad. He was slumped outside our place. When he heard the door open, he scrambled to his feet. There was a bandage on his temple. So she had helped him clean up after all. Didn't I tell you to leave? I asked. What are you still doing here? My dad stepped in front of me. Don't harass my daughter. Sir. Chad said. His eyes landed on me, but I returned his gaze with nothing but cold indifference. I'm here to apologize, he said. For some reason, his voice was painfully hoarse. We don't need your apology, my dad replied. If you truly want what's best for Anna, then leave. Now. My dad had a temper. The fact that he didn't tell Chad to get lost outright was already an act of mercy. Chad looked at me helplessly and carefully took out the blue velvet ring box from the night before. I turned my face away. I heard him say, Sir, I proposed to Anna last night. She said yes. There were many witnesses. I just made her angry. I came to apologize and ask for your forgiveness. As he spoke, his eyes reddened again. This is a matter of principle, my dad said firmly. Anna may be gentle, but she has boundaries. You were playing both sides. A man like that is not welcome in our home. At those words, Chad's face twisted in pain. He pulled out his phone and opened message after message, holding it out to us. Sir, I didn't, he insisted. In the 5 years I was with Anna, I was just friends with her. I never crossed a line. But you lied to me, didn't you? I looked straight into his eyes. Chad, can you swear that when you got together with me, you truly liked me, and that it wasn't about getting back at someone else? He fell silent. After a moment, he said, but nothing ever happened between us. Yes. Nothing had happened. So why was I still holding on to it? What he didn't understand was that every single memory I had with him included Chloe. I didn't know whether his heart had ever wandered during those 5 years. But those fragments of memory that once shone like sunlight, warming my life, had now gathered into sharp blades. Blades that stabbed straight into my heart. Those promises I once took pride in, that the three of us would grow old together. Now they were nothing but a joke. If nothing happened, does that mean it never existed? They betrayed me. Why should I be the one to forgive? I tugged gently on my dad's sleeve and shook my head. Dad, let's go. Chapter 14. It wasn't until Aunt Susan and I went to help my dad carry the folding stools that she finally told me what had happened that morning. She said that when Chad showed up, my dad had wanted to grab a broom and chase him away. But then, little by little, his eyes had reddened, and instead he told Chad not to come looking for me again. She said, after he closed the door, your dad sat on the couch in silence for a long time. He felt like he hadn't protected you. Then he said, Anna is already hurting so much. I can't let her hurt even more. I need to smile at her, the way he did, so she won't think about the painful things. And he said he felt sorry toward your mom. Sorry that he hadn't taken good enough care of you, that he'd let you suffer. After hearing all of that, I broke down sobbing. What hurt the most was realizing that my dad had been loving me quietly, all along. Aunt Susan pulled me into her arms and gently patted my back. It's okay, sweetheart. Let it out. When we went fishing, my dad deliberately kept the conversation going. I knew he was afraid that if things went quiet, I would start overthinking. Not wanting to make them worry, I played along and talked with him the entire day. Chapter 15. On the way back, a friend sent me screenshots of 2 social media posts. One was Chad's, posted that morning, taken downstairs outside my building. The caption read, "I only love one person." The other was Chloe's, taken inside Chad's place. A bandage flashed briefly in the photo, and even from the side, I would recognize that face anywhere. It had been posted in the early hours of the morning. Can we stop missing our chance this time? My friend asked, is it just me, or is something seriously wrong with the 3 of you? I replied, no, you're not imagining it. We broke up. My ex and my former best friend got together. She sent back a reaction sticker and said, this is insane. Didn't he just propose yesterday? How can people be this disgusting? I typed back, it's over. She followed up with several hug emojis. Anna, sweetheart, your good days are still ahead. And she was right. You have to walk away from what's wrong before you can meet what's right. What doesn't destroy me only makes me stronger. Chapter 16. I posted a simple update on social media, single again. Underneath it were posts from other close friends who had shared Chad's proposal the night before. Photo grids. Short videos. I swear I've never consumed this much secondhand romance in my life. Anna, I hope you're happy. This is so touching, I'm crying. 5 years together, congrats to Chad on the proposal. If anyone ever says they don't believe in love again, I'm throwing this video in their face. Now, it all felt deeply ironic. I clicked into one of the videos at random and noticed something I hadn't before. Chad wasn't looking at me. His gaze was fixed deeply, unmistakably, on Chloe beside me. I thought about how calmly he had watched Chloe and me talk the night before. What kind of mindset had he been in, balancing between 2 women like that? In that moment, was he imagining a long future with me? Or was he savoring the satisfaction of finally getting revenge on her? It didn't matter anymore. I wanted neither of them. As soon as I posted, messages flooded in. After all, the proposal had been elaborate. So many people had witnessed what they thought was our love story. Everyone assumed I was joking. But this was the truth. I replied to each message honestly, without softening anything. Why should I be gracious? They were the ones who wronged me. I did nothing wrong. Chapter 17. But that evening, Chloe still sent me a message. Anna, can you just let us be together? I didn't understand it. She already had everything. Why did she still have to go after Chad? Was it because she couldn't stand seeing me happy? But she was my best friend. And then, all of a sudden, I realized a truth I didn't want to face. Maybe Chloe had never truly seen me as a friend. Otherwise, how could she do something so shameless, so utterly without remorse? I swallowed the urge to curse and replied, let you be together? Chloe, don't the 2 of you find yourselves disgusting? She replied almost immediately. But Chad liked me first. He was the one who confessed to me. I never told you, but when you 2 had just started dating, he told me that if I wanted him, he could be with me right away. I didn't tell you back then because you were already together. I didn't want to hurt you. Oh, should I thank you for that? I typed. Chloe continued. He was with you to get back at me. If he broke up with you, he wouldn't be able to see me anymore. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The 2 of them were barely human. Just seeing you 2 makes me sick. I will not let you be together. I want you to live with your guilt, with everyone's condemnation, and stay in the shadows forever. Then I blocked her. For a man, I never imagined someone would abandon their friend and throw away their conscience entirely. At last, I understood. In Chloe's eyes, I had probably never been a friend. I was just a backdrop that made her look beautiful and desirable. A dumping ground for what she no longer wanted. All these years, when I gave both of them my sincerity and treated them with my whole heart, they only thought one thing. How easy I was to deceive. I really had been that foolish. I hadn't even noticed the undercurrents between them. Since they wanted to be together so badly, I refused to give them what they wanted. Chapter 18. The situation spread quickly through our circle of friends. I was open about it. After all, I was the victim. Our mutual friends cut ties with them one after another. Some people simply couldn't stomach it. Seeing something this morally twisted was a first for them. They anonymously posted the story online. In less than a day, it racked up tens of thousands of likes. Thousands of comments, all condemning them. I don't know how Chad saw it. But one evening, on my way home from work, he cornered me. His eyes were full of pain. "Anna, do you really hate me that much?" "Hate?" I said coldly. "You're not worth it." He still tried to explain. There really was nothing between her and me. "Why won't you believe me?" His voice trembled. "These 5 years, haven't I treated you well? Didn't you feel it?" Yes. For 5 years, he had treated me well. But love isn't a balance sheet where good cancels out bad. The damage was already done. It leaves scars. Scars that resurface someday to remind you how much it once hurt. They turn into weapons, ready to be used in every future argument. "Chad," I said, "when you lied to me, didn't you ever think about the day I'd find out? One lie needs countless more lies to keep it standing." He fell silent. I answered for him. "Because from the very beginning, you never believed there was a future for us." I tore open the truth he didn't want to face, laying it bare in front of him, word by word. "You thought I was just a pawn, something you could use and discard. You never imagined you'd actually fall in love with me." "I admit I was a bastard back then," he said urgently. "But Anna, I never wanted to break up with you. I really wanted to marry you. I wanted a home with you." I cut him off. "You're a bastard. And a cheater. And trash. Yes, you can hit me, curse me, just don't leave me, okay? I'm not desperate enough to stay with trash," I said flatly. "Save those words for Chloe. There is no Chloe." He reached out to grab me. At that moment, my dad came back from grocery shopping, saw what was happening, and drove him away without hesitation. Chapter 19. For a while after that, Chad showed up outside my office every day, waiting for me. When I went home, he followed behind me. He knew I didn't want to talk to him, so he never came close. He just kept his distance, not too near, not too far. It was exhausting. I told my dad about it. He was furious and called the police. After giving a statement, my dad walked over to Chad, who looked utterly defeated, and said, "Stop coming around my daughter." Chad slowly lifted his head, looked past my dad, and met my eyes. His were red, again. I didn't say a single word. I took my dad's arm and walked away. But that very night, Chloe messaged me from a new number and sent me a photo. "Anna, are you seriously calling the police? What's wrong with you?" In the picture, Chad was sitting in a dimly lit karaoke bar. Their hands were overlapping. It was pointless. All I felt was a deep sense of sadness. Chloe had really become someone I couldn't stand. I didn't reply. As I was about to block the number again, she sent another message. "Are you really that heartless? If you won't stay with us, then we'll keep each other warm ourselves." She was unhinged. I blocked her again without hesitation. Later, a friend told me that Chloe had gone to Chad's place that night and didn't leave until the next day. Someone had heard them fighting violently. No one knew what it was about. All anyone saw was Chloe posting a crying flower on social media, captioned, "Even if the road ahead is full of thorns, I still choose to embrace you again." She had really mastered the art of melodrama. But I didn't care anymore. A friend asked me if I wanted to get back at them, said it was too infuriating to let it go. I stayed silent for a long moment, then shook my head. If I kept engaging, I'd only sink deeper into the mess. I'd be tying myself to them again. I didn't want to become that hysterical person anymore. It wasn't worth it. Sometimes, the most painful response is no response at all. Chapter 20. After things had been calm for a while, packages started arriving at our house, frequently. Some of them were even baby items. I glanced at my dad nervously. He immediately waved it off. "Why are you looking at me? Your aunt is well past that age." I pulled out a baby bottle. Yesterday it was clothes. Today it's a bottle. What else have we gotten? My dad was sorting through the deliveries and counted. A rocking toy, baby toys, not sure about today's box. It's over there, stacked pretty high. Aunt Susan frowned and said quietly, "Could it be that guy?" The room fell silent. After the police report, Chad never showed up in person again. But every week, he sent flowers to my office. And food. I gave the food to my coworkers. The flowers went straight into the trash. I didn't want any connection with him at all. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. I never expected him to still be clinging on, sending all these bizarre things to my home. I took a pair of scissors and cut open the box. Inside was a fully assembled Lego set. There was also a handwritten letter. "Anna, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. These days have been awful. Truly awful. Every time I close my eyes, all I see is you. You once held me and said, 'Chad, should we have 2 kids someday?' I said it was up to you, but I didn't want you to suffer through pregnancy. You said pain was just one of life's experiences, that you wanted to live through different stages of life, to prove you had lived, that you had left something behind. You said that if we grew old together, we'd have endless memories. Even when we had nothing left to say, we could relive our youth through all those small moments. How did I lose you? Without you, no one will walk through those moments with me anymore. What's the point of living like that? Anna, lying to you was my fault. Please don't ignore me. We were happy for those 5 years, weren't we? I said I'd give you a home, let me make it all come true. You said you loved children, so I bought everything already. Let's forget the past and start over, okay?" Seeing me frozen, my dad patted my shoulder. "I respect whatever you decide." I folded the letter, then tore it up. "Dad, you know me. I've been stubborn since I was a kid. Once I make up my mind, I don't change it. If it's over, then it's over. I won't walk that road again." Chapter 21. Sometimes, when friends chatted with me, they'd mention updates about them. Chloe chased after Chad constantly and was eventually fired for poor performance. Chad worked at his own family's company, so it didn't affect him much. But mentally, he was clearly not the same. They didn't end up together. After hearing all this, a friend asked me, "Would you forgive them?" I shook my head. My heart isn't strong enough to forgive the harm they caused me. I used to be selfish, almost brainwashed into believing that when my dad shared his life with someone else, I was no longer his priority. But back then, I had a lover and a best friend, and I thought that was enough for a lifetime. Half a year later, I found myself enjoying the days of bickering with my dad, grocery shopping and cooking with Aunt Susan. Ordinary. Real. Once, I loved Chad desperately. Once, my world revolved around sisterhood. Now, when I think of them by chance, it feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes I wonder if I hadn't gone to confess to Chad back then. Or if I hadn't accepted his confession. Would things be different now? But there are no what ifs. Maybe this is just life. Chapter 22. Not long before Christmas, Chloe came looking for me. I refused to see her. But she didn't give up. She asked several mutual friends to persuade me. In the end, I agreed to meet. We met at the cafe we used to love going to together. It had been so long that the moment felt awkward. When she saw me, she spoke nervously. "Anna, I'm sorry." I didn't respond. I just looked at her coldly. What was the point of saying sorry now? I would never smile and tell her it was okay, the way I used to. "I'm sorry. I was stupid. I fell for someone I shouldn't have." I still said nothing. If she had truly treated me as a friend, she should have buried those feelings for Chad the moment they surfaced. She should never have let me find out. But when it came down to a choice between the two of us, she abandoned me and chose him. She never thought about this. If I stepped aside, I would become the unreachable one. I would become the one he could never have. Would they really be able to live with themselves, hurting me while carrying on something so ugly? She hadn't thought any of it through. As she spoke, her eyes reddened. "So I'm the sinner, aren't I? And now you're the one who's truly free. Only Chad and I will live forever with the label of betrayal." I finally couldn't hold it in anymore and frowned. "Weren't you so confident? You said that if you wanted him, he'd be with you. Well, did you get what you wanted?" She lowered her head, sobbing. I lost my mind. "It's all my fault. You'll never forgive me, will you?" That's right. During this time, I would occasionally think of the happy moments we once shared. I had told her she had to be my bridesmaid someday. She had smiled and agreed. Sometimes I truly couldn't understand it. She had so many boyfriends, why did she have to fall for Chad again? Maybe what you can't have always feels more tempting. Or maybe I was just too slow to see it. I thought having both a best friend and a boyfriend meant ultimate happiness. But someone who was rejected, and someone who was secretly in love, two people whose feelings were never pure, could never truly coexist as just friends. She ruined my proposal. No, one person alone can't destroy everything. The truth is, the two of them destroyed my happiness together. Still, if forgiveness and gratitude don't have to cancel each other out. I am grateful to them for waking me up in time, for helping me see the road ahead clearly. As I was about to leave, she stopped me. "My family introduced me to someone suitable. I'm getting married soon. Could you go check on Chad? He hasn't been doing well these past 6 months." I picked up my bag and refused. "No. I don't stay entangled with exes." With tears in her eyes, Chloe apologized again. "Even if you don't believe me, Anna, I hope you're happy." "No need," I said. "I just hope I never see either of you again for the rest of my life." Chapter 23. Chad came again. Early on Christmas Eve morning, he was already waiting downstairs. In past years, around this time, I would always bring him home to have a meal and drinks with my dad. Maybe it was too conspicuous, or maybe my dad didn't want bad luck before the new year, he let Chad stay for the meal. Chad stood at the door, trying to be cautious, but the surprise in his eyes was impossible to hide. After a few rounds of drinks, my dad looked at him and asked, "Chad, have you still been going to see my daughter?" Chad froze for a moment, put down his chopsticks, and sat up straight. "Not very often, sir." Which really meant sending things now and then, just to remind her he existed. My dad set his glass down and said firmly, "You've broken up. This isn't appropriate. Don't bring trouble into Anna's life. She still has a future. She'll marry someday." The speaker may not have meant much by it. But the listener took it deeply to heart. Chad's eyes reddened, his voice trembling. "Sir, sometimes I miss her too much." My dad immediately lost his temper and slammed his hand on the table. "You miss her, so you go looking for her? When you first came to our home, what did you promise? You said you'd treat her well for life. You said you'd never do anything to hurt her. And then what? You got involved with her best friend. We didn't get together, Chad said weakly. My dad ignored him and stood up. Then why did you hurt her? Why did you treat her like that? I raised Anna myself. I've never even had the heart to scold her. And you, after everything you did, why should she forgive you? Tell me. He slammed his glass onto the table. It shattered across the floor. From today on, don't come back. Don't bring trouble to my home or to my daughter. Chad stood up as well, choking as if he wanted to explain. My dad waved his hand. Go. This is the last time I'll see you. Chad looked at me. I kept my head down and said nothing. Aunt Susan went to open the door, clearly ready to see him out. At last, Chad wiped his eyes and said to us, "Sir, don't be angry. I'll leave now. Happy New Year." After he left, my dad pulled me into a hug. My precious daughter. In the new year, we're leaving the past behind for good. My eyes burned as I nodded. Chapter 24. After the new year, I relearned how to drive. Whenever I had time, I'd take my dad and Aunt Susan on short trips nearby. My dad also picked up what I can only describe as a senior citizen hobby. He bought a long telephoto camera lens. He spent every day studying it, tinkering with it. I thought he wanted to photograph flowers and landscapes. But to my surprise, every time we came home from a trip, all he posted on social media were photos of me. My girl. Ugh. So cringy. Today my daughter made me go running to lose weight. Do I look like I've gained weight? You're not fat. I'm the one who dragged you along. Family picnic. My daughter's cooking skills are improving. To be fair, I only arranged the fruit plate. My daughter says my photography skills aren't good, but I think I take great pictures of her. They would be great if he didn't make me look 4 feet tall. Every now and then, Aunt Susan would tell me that since I'd moved back home, my dad had been happier every single day. One day, I accidentally asked him why he had agreed to let me live with Chad back then. He just squeezed my hand and said, "Compared to keeping you by my side, what matters more to me is that you're happy." I hugged him, my eyes burning. With you both here, I really am happy. Home will always be my warmest harbor. Chapter 25. A year later, I heard from friends that Chloe had rushed into a marriage, and then rushed out of it. She asked a friend to pass along a message, saying she was sorry. I didn't respond. Chad also had friends tell me that he would wait for me forever. I still didn't respond. One friend sent me his social media account and laughed bitterly. It's always after the damage is done that people suddenly realize they regret it. I clicked through and took a look. At 3 a.m. On the night of the proposal, he had posted a photo, "My greatest wish in this life is to walk forward with you." On the day I refused to see him, he posted, "I am the stupidest person in the world." When I announced I was single again, he screenshot it and posted, "I'll wait forever for your forgiveness." On the day he blocked me on the street, "I'm trash. I don't deserve anything." On the day the police were called, "If getting drunk could make me forget, I'd rather stay sober forever." A photo of a Lego build, "You used to say this was so stress relieving. Then why is it that the longer I build it, the more I miss you?" I'll admit, I almost cried. Not because of him. But because of the years I gave, without holding anything back. And because, for a long time, I believe he did love me. But I also have to admit that his heart was never mine alone, it was just that, over time, I became the most important one. And later? Even without Chloe, there would have been someone else. Once trust collapses, everything is lost. No matter how far the ships have sailed, spilled water can never be gathered back. In this emotional wreckage, even when I woke from midnight dreams with a pillow soaked in tears, I still held my head high. Because I'm still young. Because I woke up in time. I will meet other people. I will keep moving forward. It's just that on that road ahead, there will no longer be Chad or Chloe.